Hi everyone, today's assignment is about choosing the right graph. So to get you started, we are going over a quick tool to help you remember the difference between independent and dependent variables, and also to learn and remember which axis each one goes on. So this is called the dry mix trick. You're gonna watch that video, and then we're gonna come down here. So it says now you have a good understanding of how to make a correct scientific graph. In this task, you will be given two sets of data, or in this task, you will be given two sets of data that you will graph. You are expected to choose the right type of graph for each data set. So we have talked about three types of graphs so far. We talked about pie charts, line graphs, and bar graphs. What we noticed though is in some of your previous assignments, we're still getting confused about when to use line graphs versus bar graphs. So you should use a line graph when the data sets are sequential or continuous. So for example, if you're measuring changes over time, you will use a line graph. Another example would be monitoring changes that occur as the temperature increases. The data in this case has a specific order going from the lowest value to the highest value, so it is sequential. You should use a bar graph when you can break your data down into specific categories, or at least be able to group them into categories so each distinct bar has a specific meaning. For example, a teacher might want to know how many students got A's, B's, and C's, etc. on a test. The letter grade is a category. Another example is determining how many different types of trees there are in a forest. The tree types are a category. One way to determine if the data is sequential or categorical is to check and see if the groups on the x-axis can be moved around without changing the meaning of the graph. If the x-axis is time, you cannot move the numbers around without changing the meaning of the graph. But if the x-axis is tree types, you can. One other little trick to Google Sheets, if you're choosing to make electronic graphs, is that Google Sheets is calling them column graphs. There is a section that says bar graphs, but they have them horizontally, so side to side instead of up and down. We want you to choose, if you're making a bar graph for us, click on the columns graph, not the one that Google Sheets is calling a bar. So once you have reviewed this video and those directions at the bottom, make sure you mark this page as done, and then click Next. So the first part of the assignment has a data set about teenagers, 20-year-olds, and 30-year-olds, and what they do with their downtime. You have the choice to make an electronic graph in Google Sheets or a hand-drawn graph. If you're making an electronic graph, you're going to click on this link here to make a copy of the Google Sheet that has this data already in it for you. So all you have to do is choose the correct chart type when you're inserting your graph. Once you have created your graph, if you're using paper, if you're making a hand-drawn graph, you can print out the graph paper from the link below. If you don't have a printer, then use a piece of graph paper or line paper, whatever you have available. Just make sure that it's very clear for us to see the lines and it's not going up and down. Try to make sure it's as straight as possible. Once you've created your graph, you're going to use Submit Assignment in the top right corner. If you have done a hand-drawn graph, you need to take a picture of your graph where we can see all of the words and numbers and put it in a Google Doc and then submit. If you have an electronic graph, you're going to select your U1T9 Choosing the Right Graph Part A Google Sheet from your Google Drive and then submit. Once you have submitted this assignment, scroll all the way down past the rubric and click Next to reach the second half. So if you click Next before you have submitted your assignment, it's going to give you the module is locked error. So the orange link will take you back to what you forgot to turn in, and you'll click your Submit, you'll choose your file, and click Submit Assignment. Once you have submitted the assignment, it will let you go on to Part B. Part B is a second set of data. Again, you have the choice to make an electronic graph using this Google Sheet. You can make a copy, or you can do a hand-drawn graph using your graph paper. This time, you're going to figure out if you should use a line or a bar graph to represent two forests and the age of the trees in those forests. Once you have created your graph, you're going to submit your graph using the Submit Assignment button in the top right corner. Again, if you did a hand-drawn graph, you need to take a picture of your graph and put it in a Google Doc and then submit. If you chose to do it electronically, you need to choose the Unit 1 T9, choosing the right graph Part B Google Sheet in your Google Drive, and then submit. This is your assignment for Monday and Tuesday. Be sure that you are reviewing your vocabulary terms. We'll have our third quiz over our vocabulary terms on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your day and make sure you join your teacher's Google Meets if you have any questions.